just incredible. It's not every day you get to see young people having a platform and speaking their truth and doing it so amazingly. So at least we're getting this part, so don't worry, guys. And I'll write everything up. But yeah, great answers from both. I think, I'm not sure if I saw a question in the chat. I think it was just from Omar, not just, but it was from Omar. Omar was asking Lauren if you've already answered it. Yeah, just about the documents. If anyone else is interested in the research document that Lauren mentioned, just send us an email after this and we can get it from Lauren and send it out. Thank you for those great answers again, guys. So on to the next question. Robert and Max, this one is to you guys. And this question is, what have you gotten out of the traineeship, and do you think projects like Keeping It Wild are necessary?
I can go first. Like, where do I begin, I guess? So yeah, I've honestly gained so much. I think one of my favorite things about the traineeship is that you actually just get to go out and explore London, which I don't think you really get other opportunities like that. And especially in East London, I've been able to go like outside of East London. So like I've gone to South London and North London, which, like, not being from London anyway, I hadn't really been to lots of those places. But yeah, on top of that, you know, I've gained kind of what I wanted to as well, which was the, you know, practical conservation skills and communications, but also things that, you know, I didn't really expect, like bushcraft and environmental education. And also, dare I say, I've also made friends, which is really nice. Sorry for the cringe, but it's true. But yeah, I guess going on to the second part, yeah, projects like Keeping It Wild are definitely necessary. And I think that they are a step in the right direction for youth engagement in the conservation sector, in London specifically as well. But I think many more organizations should have similar programs. And yeah, I guess for some of the viewers who may not be aware, like the Keeping It Wild project does end next year. So I really hope that the legacy it leaves behind is like really strong, and obviously changes London Wildlife Trust for the better, which hopefully will have a knock-on effect for other conservation organizations.
So like Max, I thought the traineeship was amazing. I learned so much and gained so many new skills, and I think it really improved my confidence as well as prepared me for doing conservation work as a job. And I would say that definitely projects like these are necessary because nature is for everyone, so everyone should have access to it no matter what their background is.
Absolutely, I agree. Does anyone else on the panel have any thoughts on that question? Because I think it's quite an important one.
Yeah, I have something to say. I think on the note of it being like something that's necessary, I think it is because the traineeship is such like a unique and different way to enter the sector and just get a career in conservation. Like it's a really good place to start. I think especially for young people when you're leaving school, sort of the general idea is that you should immediately go straight to uni, get a degree. And sometimes that's not the path for everybody because everybody's different. Everybody has their own way of finding, you know, themselves and what they're going to do. So I think it's really important, and it's just great that there's like that kind of different opportunity for young people to access as well, especially to get into such a practical sector as well. You can get hands-on experience with something like the Keeping It Wild traineeship, so it's just a really good opportunity.
Absolutely, I agree. Any more thoughts on that, panel?
Yeah, I've got one. I think for me, one of the big things was just learning so much. Like I was like Eden, I went to university and I did environmental science, but like Eden, I didn't get a huge amount of practical experience. It was a lot of lab-based work, and you know, you can do as much lab reports as you can do as many as you want, but that's not going to prepare you for any sort of role in the conservation sector. Experience is so important, and it was actually doing this and realizing sort of how little I knew about the natural world. I think it, at least for me, I did think I was like, I knew slightly more than like Joe Blogs, do you know what I mean? I was like, oh yeah, I know more than the general public, blah, blah, blah. And then when I actually started this traineeship, I was like, oh my days, I don't know anything. But it was a cool thing to think, like to experience, because it was like learning, but not in an academic environment where there's the pressure to perform so well constantly. It was like the best kind of learning that there is. You know, you get to learn and just sort of expand your mind and like you know, explore completely new areas. So yeah, things like plant identification, animal identification, even fungi identification, which I wasn't particularly interested in fungi before I started this traineeship, and now I'm like, I don't want to say I'm mushroom mad, but I'm a bit mad for the mushrooms. They're so cool, and just going out has been such a brilliant thing now, because I'm annoying my family or whichever friend I'm with, like, oh, that's that, and that's that, and that's that, and you know, even if I'm not telling them what I'm seeing, I stop and I try to like learn what's there, and the world has become so much more interesting and exciting since I've done this traineeship, because I actually know what I'm seeing now.
Yeah, I had a similar thing as Omar. Like, whilst I was in university, I got really turned off about learning about plants, because it was so like into detail about the smallest cell and how the chemicals in the cells would work, and I did not want to know about that. But coming into this traineeship, the first day, or one of the first days, we went just walking around London in the pouring rain, which I hate. But I learned so much and I had such a good time, and it really just sparked joy in me and an interest in plants again. And I've learned so much, like IDing and like media and networking, and it's just really been a genuinely enjoyable experience. And I'm going to be sad that it's over in 2 weeks, and I'm going to miss all the people because everyone's been so lovely. But yeah, it's been wonderful, especially because I love learning so much. So yeah, this has been amazing.
Oh, we're going to miss you too, Eden. We really are. I just kind of wanted to touch on a point I think Omar made there about kind of it not being that kind of regimented, you have to learn this and learn it in a particular way, which I think is, yeah, like you said, the beauty of the traineeship as well, because you can sort of direct it to a certain extent. You can direct and say, this is what I like, this is, you know, and this is how I learn, which I think is really, really powerful. And you know, in school, it's almost like you're put in a box, and it's like, you know, you have to memorize this for these exams. It's this equals that. But with the traineeship, it's, yeah, you're outside and you're learning in different ways, and you're learning at your own pace as well. And being out with Zoe as well at one point, putting you on the spot here, Zoe, on our volunteer day, she said to me, like, oh my God, normally, like, my brain would have switched off by now, like, I would have unfocused. But, you know, just learning, we were doing tree ID, and she was like, this is all going in. I think she really surprised herself. So yeah, being out in nature and learning as you go along, I think is really, really powerful. So I completely agree with you guys on that. And then moving on to Omar and Martina. This is your question. What are some of the ways you connect with nature?
After you, Martina. I've talked a lot.
Okay. So in the chat now, I just post a link because it's to a blog that I wrote for London Wildlife Trust whilst I was doing my traineeship, and it's about, well, what we're about to speak about, just ways that you can connect to nature. So feel free to check that out. This is going to sound really simple and like straightforward and general, but for me, my go-to thing to connect to nature is just going for a walk. You know, like life is busy, and I think the thing about like going for walks is you can just, it doesn't have to be like hours. It can literally be like 10 minutes, and it will literally make a huge impact on the way I'm feeling, and just it'll give me a second to like breathe and just, you know, refresh my mind and get some energy. And also, you know, you can get like some physical activity in, which is good for you as well. You can listen to music if you like or not. It's completely up to you, but it's just something that's good to do, and it's accessible to everyone really to, just take a step outside and go for a walk. Otherwise, I think some good ways to connect with nature is through like being creative. So, for example, I like to photograph nature, and I think, like, for example, seasonal changes. That's something that I find like really enjoyable to photograph. And yeah, there's also another thing you can do to connect to nature is growing. I know during the traineeship, Omar was doing a lot of growing in his garden, and I noticed like it makes you really connected to nature because it's kind of like bonding, like as you're growing, looking after plant, whether it's flowers or vegetables, anything. Like it's just a really good way to connect and be present with nature.
For me, the ways I connect with nature is quite similar to Martina. In that I do go out for walks. A lot of it is from volunteering. So I volunteer for the Downlands Partnership, who own cattle and sheep that the London Wildlife Trust use on their sites to graze on their sites. So I currently volunteer at Saltbox Hill, which is a London Wildlife Trust site, and it's a little bit of a trek, but it means that I get to see things that the general public don't get to see, because I get to go into the sheep enclosure, which the public aren't allowed to do, and because there's so little public, there's no public access really allowed there. It means that there's a lot of things that grow there as a result. So I've got to really practice my mushroom IDs. There's a really good app called Shroomify. I'll type it into the chat if you're interested in learning about all the different mushrooms growing around you. Shroomify is a really, really good app. I've got to like look at all the different, just everything that sort of exists. I was looking at beech leaves. This is a good example, and some leaves have minors in them, and this beech leaf that I picked up specifically had this strange, it wasn't a zigzag, I can only call it the Versace pattern. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's it goes up and then to the right and then down and then to the right and then up to that, and I'd never seen that before. And what was strange about it was there was a green area around that, but the rest of the leaf was completely dead. So when I looked it up, I found out that this leaf minor, when it's born, it releases a chemical which keeps that part of the leaf around it alive, so that it can still stay alive even when the rest of the leaf is dead. It's just all these tiny things that happen and exist around us. And when you actually go outside and start to take an interest, you realize that life is so much bigger than yourself, and that you have a purpose outside of yourself, if that makes sense. Without, again, apologies for sounding like, oh, I'm not trying to convert anyone to it or something, but it is beautiful having something outside of yourself and away from your problems and away from even your own thoughts, and it's just completely separate, and you get to sort of appreciate the beauty and the huge, like the magnitude of the world, I suppose.
Absolutely agree with both points there. I'm also going to open that question up to the panel because I think it's quite a nice one. What are some of the ways you connect with nature, guys?
Just before this panel that we're having, I was talking in a meeting, and there was a magpie just like outside of my window that flew in, like totally disrupted what I was saying. But yeah, so sometimes I just like look outside my window and watch what's going on. Like there's so much to see by just even like looking at one space, and you can like see patterns and stuff like that that's happening just in the little space around you. So that's sometimes how I connect to nature if I feel too anxious or something. But like just going to your local park and green space is a great way to do it, because then it's so close to you, and it's also something to do in your community as well, and possibly joining a friends group for that if there's any. So like some parks and woods, for example, if it's called like Hillwood, like Friends of Hillwood, and they do like lots of conservation things, like looking after the area and stuff. So I'd probably do that.
Yeah, I agree with Eden. Sometimes it's nice to just look out the window and see nature just there as it is, and it's gorgeous. And I actually saw a magpie yesterday, so really exciting and fun. Sometimes I take care of my houseplants as well. I know it's not like nature, but it's inside. And when you're taking care of something or just out in nature, you can hyper focus, and that kind of takes away from anxiety. It's like a meditative state. Yeah. So it's really good and helpful. That's how I do it.
Those plants are definitely nature, Zoe. Like I have them everywhere. So definitely nature.
Amazing, definitely. And I was just saying to Sam, we said to Sam at the beginning, he's got like a whole jungle behind him there. So I think, yeah, Sam's definitely in nature at the moment. Thank you, guys. If anyone else hasn't got a comment on that, we can go to the last.
I just want to say that Lauren has like her own jungle. She is the plant mum of our traineeship. So if you need any advice of like how to anything to do with houseplants, like she sings to them, she loves them. She was saying that she likes
I talk to them. I like them to know that they're doing well, and they grow. So they just honestly, I've had plants that grow like feet in like a week. I love my plants so much. I'm just obsessed with them. They're like my pets. Just each plant has a name, a personality, and I think it's definitely a good way to, especially when you don't have outdoor space, to be able to like get your hands in earth and kind of like propagate and like watch them grow and root and just learn the nurture conditions for each plant as well, which I think it's like getting greater connectivity with planting and growing even when you can't get outside. So
I agree. And what do you have behind you, Lauren? What plant is that and what name?
oh, this is my Monstera. She's very floppy. She's actually called Fromage, and she's just huge mostly on that side. She just kind of flops down to the floor, but she won't be propped up, but she grows great. So I just let her do her thing. She's one of my smaller plants, so she's pretty cute, yeah. And then I've got my rubber plant, which is probably my biggest plant, which is a good like 6-7 feet tall and just has a whole like mini tree just growing out the side sideways. She doesn't fall over. She's doing great. And then I just have a jungle of other plants and many cuttings, but they're on that side of the room because I didn't want too much background distraction. I blend into the jungle, so yeah.
I love that. I feel like there's a blog post in there somewhere, Lauren, about your many plants. I would love to hear that. I've definitely got a plant addiction going on, and I think there should be a group called Plant Addiction Anonymous, because it's becoming an issue. Like I'll go to the supermarket and be like, I need to get something, come out of the house plant. And Sam's just propagated me a plant as well, which is now my new baby. So yeah, I definitely am an advocate of plant care. Okay, and then moving on to the last question before we go on to opening the floor to the audience. This is to everyone. What are some of the ways that you practice self-love and self-care to help you get through difficult times, such as anything, but maybe things like human rights violations, systematic racism, LGBTQ injustices, the climate crisis, and or the global pandemic that we're going through now? What are some of the ways that you practice self-love and self-care when things like this crop up?
So, as someone who is part of many minorities, I'm Black, I'm mixed, I'm part of the LGBT plus community. Like, oh, I have so many things going on. Like, a lot of things affect me a lot of the time. So, something that has really helped me is something called radical rest, which is basically the current society that we're in is quite capitalist, which means that you're made to like be productive in a work way. So that like just resting and sitting is radical. So anything that you do to like chill out and stuff is like a radical rest. But not even like engaging with anything. Like if you, for example, were playing a video game or something, that's not actually resting because you're still like engaging and putting energy and stuff into it. So possibly something like just going for a walk or having a nap. I am a big advocate of naps. I love naps because it's so important to listen to your body and what it needs. And when you're asleep, it's your body actually heals itself. So if you need to sleep, go to sleep. On your lunch break, go to sleep. It is so beneficial for your
I was
mind.
actually about to say, Eden, my biggest admiration, not my biggest admiration of you, but one of the biggest ones is just that you can always schedule the perfect nap. Like we'll have like a half-hour break. You'll go nap and be fresh for the start of the meeting. And I just really want that in my life. But I'm so bad at napping. I just always wake up really groggy. So I need to perfect my timings.
The more
I
naps you
want
have,
tips
the
on
better.
how to nap well.
The more naps you have, the better you'll be at like waking up and then like just getting ready to go. That's how I've experienced it anyway. And then for me and like other people that are Black people, our resting time has like been taken away from us, like throughout the history and stuff, like how we're told we have to work twice as hard to get to the same place that other privileged people have. So this is even like a bigger thing to rest when you need to and put in boundaries and know your worth and when you need to stop and look after yourself. So yeah, that is something that I do, just rest and look after myself and charge my batteries before going back to whatever is happening. I also love dancing, so I will always put on a really great song and just have a dance around my room, which is also good for exercise. So yeah, that's how I look after myself in down times.
Do you mind if I jump in like right after? Because what Eden just said about being told, you know, you have to work twice as hard, I actually brought that up during my interview for the traineeship. And I spoke about how people from either immigrant backgrounds or working class backgrounds or working class immigrant backgrounds, they're often raised to feel guilt or shame for taking rests, and you know, they're told that they need to be constantly working because they've had to see either their grandparents or their parents working every single day to make ends meet. You know, there's no time for joy, there's no time to experience nature because nature isn't going to pay the bills. You know, spending time with the sun on your face, that's not going to pay the bills. That's not going to offer security to you and your family. That's not going to pay the rent. So for a lot of people from those backgrounds, they're taught that you're either working or you're doing something work related with your time, and then it's bedtime. And that's it. There's no time for joy. So something that I do to take care of myself is watching funny things, like from a huge range of genres. So like, I'm watching like 7 or 8 things at once right now, and it's all stuff that makes me laugh. And it's sort of my downtime, and it's also my uplifting time. I'm currently watching like The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and The Vicar of Dibley and Laurel and Hardy and Outnumbered. And it's like everything that makes me laugh, everything that's silly, everything that I can kind of relate to, or it reminds me of a person who I found funny. It just makes such a difference to my emotional state. And when you're it's sort of linked to like my video as well, when you are connected permanently online and you sort of see negative stuff all the time, watching funny things removes you from that in the same way that being in nature removes you from that negativity. So yeah, radical rest, watching funny things is like one of my best things that I could recommend.
Thanks for that, Omar. We had a question earlier in the chat from Taryn Teeling, who said that they're a teacher and definitely think wildlife and conservation should be taught more in school. How do you think it should be taught, and what do you wish you learned in school about nature? She also says, well done for your creative films.
Zoe, you're still in school, so I think this would be a good question for you to answer.
Thank you, Eden. So firstly, what I wanted to know is that there is an actual industry for conservation, first of all, because I didn't even get to know what the name was. I had to search that myself. Then I would have what I would have wanted taught to me is first of all, the knowledge needed for conservation, because even joining this traineeship, I still feel like I don't know enough to be here, but even though I do, I just feel like if I had more knowledge, it'd make more sense. So, you know, just small things like natural history and just like, you know, trees and about culture and all that. Yeah, imposter syndrome, definitely. And so first of all, natural history and the fact that there is a conservation industry. Then I would have liked to know what sort of roles are in that industry and how could I get there? So I've only just learned about things like managing sites and, you know, ecotourism and all these things, just I didn't know they existed. And I actually really like this idea. I thought I was just making these jobs up in my head, and I was like, they don't even have a real name, but they do. So that's a big thing. And I think maybe starting early on. So just, I'm not sure like what demographic you teach, but I know that if it's going to be something like low income families and, you know, minorities, they're gonna have to face that prejudice, especially from their parents, because they are gonna get it's not a real job, it's not a real industry, it's not gonna make a lot of money. But that's something that's gonna need help. They're gonna need help to be taught to surpass that and try and like get the knowledge they need to get where they need to go. So let me summarize that, because that was very messy. One, I think it'd be great to teach that there is conservation and how oh, yes, good, okay, perfect. Because my friends are also from East London and they would have loved that. Natural history GCSE as well. That's a very good idea. So I think natural history needs to be taught, number one. And then more about the conservation industry, how it works, and the links to heritage as well. That should be taught. And also the different roles within the sector, that would be really useful, and pathways, and just also giving some links to different companies they could go to, or alternatives to going to do A-levels in university, because I didn't know those alternatives existed either. I think that would be the best things. And then just general encouragement, lots of encouragement, because that's what's needed the most.
Martina, I think you said that you're 16, so you're probably close to school as well. So I'd like to hear from you.
Oh, I'm sorry if you missed that. I'm 19, but I do agree. With some of the points made, those are really good points, and I think that you know, having like some kind of conservation, environmental education brought into the education system would be so helpful to so many young people, for sure.
I wanted to add that during this traineeship, this current cohort of trainees have been able to be part of like forest schools and education groups. And I think that every single primary school and secondary school should have like one session a week going out and learning in nature. Because even like in the forest schools that we went to, my group, they weren't happy to like put their hands in the mud. And that is mind-blowing to me. Like as a kid, I was making mud pies and like making a mess of myself and stuff. So for kids to not even be okay with getting dirty, like I understand we're in coronavirus, so that might have an impact on that, but that's not okay in my mind. So I think that like having at least 1 day a week for primary schools and especially secondary schools, because that's usually the age where people lose their interest in nature, because there's not really much out there like encouraging them to go into nature. And also I think that I went to a webinar about the uses of plants. And that was really, really interesting for me, because I didn't know, like, because we use it in like food and stuff, but like possibly like natural remedies, like, because drugs are from plants. So those, knowing why certain plants are used in certain things and how they help would be like really interesting. I think it would keep people engaged and invested in the nature that's around them and their community and things like that.
Thank you so much, guys, for that very comprehensive answer. It was fantastic. So I hope that's given some more insight. And we've only got a couple of more minutes, but I'd hate for people who have got questions not to have asked them. So if you do have a question, audience, please pop it in the chat now or unmute yourself and ask it directly to our panel. They're very open to your questions, so please feel free to. Okay, I might be jumping the gun here, but if nobody does have a question, maybe we could go around and get a final thought from our lovely panel, each of you. Or do you want to mute yourself? It might be mayhem. Just a final thought, anything that you want to get across about young people, about yourself, something that if you're on a stage and someone asks you a question, or it could be, I don't know, what would you tell your younger self? Please let us know. So I want to hear from all of you. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, please just ask them and then we will round up as quickly as we can. Maybe to make this easier, shall I pick? Okay, so final thoughts from Max.
Cool. I know it's like cliche, but I'm going to quote you, Chantelle, because it's like one of my favorite quotes recently. I know that in one of your blog posts recently, you wrote a quote that was, the environment is not exclusive. In its very essence, it is inclusive. So that's the quote. And then I'm going to add on to the end. And that includes you. So that's like an additional quote. But that's my final little segment.
Thanks, Max. Okay, I'll choose next. Let's go with Robert. Final thoughts.
So I'd just like to say that, outside is good. You shouldn't be afraid to give it a try, even if everything's sort of saying you shouldn't.
Absolutely, even if your mobile is literally calling you, go outside and leave that mobile there. Thanks, Robert. Next, Lauren.
I would just say that it's really important to be conscious about actively getting people engaged in nature, especially young people, because obviously it's like a legacy to continue on and they tend to be the most excluded. So it's just, I think, an important conscious thing for all of us to have to help engage other young people and young people in general. And to finish with a quote, because I was inspired by Max, I can't actually remember who said it now, but it's like one of my favorite quotes, that the human soul and spirit needs place where it has not been rearranged by the hands of man. So that's my roundup.
Wow, thank you, Lauren. Brilliant. Okay, let's go with Omar.
I think my final thought would be to focus on community connections and intergenerational connections. Oftentimes with conservation, people either focus on solely getting young people into it or working with current volunteering groups who tend to be older people. And there's not as much focus on actually connecting those generations together and sort of going back to how communities used to be, where there was that link between different generations, so that knowledge was passed on and passed up as well. and that tends to form stronger bonds and stronger communities who then actually want to look after their area and the nature in it. So I think community focus is especially important when it comes to things.
Absolutely agree. Thanks, Omar. Okay, let's go with Eden.
I don't know what to say. Let's talk about diversity in nature. So a lot of people, I'm going to talk about Black people in this instance, are pushed out of nature because it seems like not cool to go out in nature, or even when we are out in nature, we're not welcome. So there's a viral video that's been going around about how a Black birder was watching watching some birds, and there was a woman who had her dog off a leash in a place where she should have her dog on her leash, and she called the police saying that the man was harassing her and attacking her, when in the video you can see it's totally not happening. But I've talked to other Black people and they've been asked if they're lost, or like basically just been told that they don't belong there, which is heartbreaking because we do belong in nature. As Lauren said, nature is inherently inclusive. So yeah, it's really important to be actively and somewhat aggressively, because we need to have that support and allow us to be in nature and have that access. I also like to promote Black Girls Hike and some other Black owned and run nature groups. I think there's Black Birders and Black Faces in Nature as well. So yeah, please go and support those, and yeah, just support diverse people being in nature and seeing that representation and giving us access to things that everyone should have access to.
Fantastic, thank you, Eden. And if you can find it, I'll put you on the spot, please put your blog, your recent blog post, I think it was in British Ecology. Eden wrote a blog, or a piece. So if you can find the link to that, just pop it in the chat. And then let's go with Zoe.
Oh my gosh, everyone said something good. Nature and the environment is relevant. It's relevant for everyone. It doesn't matter what your job is, doesn't matter who you are or what you think and feel. Nature is always going to be relevant because we live amongst it. It's not, it exists amongst us. We exist amongst it. So we all need to pitch in, and we all need to do it together to protect our wild spaces. That's it.
Absolutely, thank you, Zoe. And last but by no means least, we have Martina.
Those are some really great thoughts, everybody. So to wrap it all up, I suppose just what we can gather from this event today and just hearing everybody and young people speak is that nature is for everyone, and just get out there and do something for yourself, enjoy nature, embrace it, take the time, and yeah, support each other, do things that you know, and yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Martina. I think that's all the final thoughts from our lovely panel. I just want to say from Sam and I, thank you so much to our panel. Like, you guys were absolutely amazing. I know people were nervous and things like that. So thank you so much. And there wasn't even a practice with everyone together. So you guys did it seamlessly. You were really, really real, and you were just authentically you. Lily has said this was incredible. So thank you so much, guys. My heart is like feeling really full and buzzing, and I'm just going to go after this into a corner and smile for a bit because this has just made me so happy. So thank you so much. Obviously, we're here today to celebrate the Great Northwood Festival in all sorts of ways and different capacities. So please, like we said before, do check out the rest of the events. I mean, this was a real star of the show for me, but do check out all the rest of the events because there are some really, really amazing ones there. Like I said, yoga, well-being sessions, painting workshop on Sunday. And I might need your hand with this, Sam. If you could help us out with our survey. We've got a survey that should be emailed to you after the session. And if you could fill that in, that would be amazing, because it will help us evaluate our project. And if you loved it so much that you want to donate to London Wildlife Trust, please do. Sam will pop a link in the chat. And if you want to go even further and become a member of London Wildlife Trust, please do. I think that is everything, except to say thank you so much, everyone, for being here and for asking questions and engaging with our lovely young people. This is really great, and I hope more conversations like this can take place in the future. And I think that's everything from me, unless Sam has got anything else to say. Oh, last thing I'll say is to save the chat. If there's any links in there that you want to save, you can click on the chat, and the 3 little buttons at the bottom, I think to the right of my screen, you can click it and save the chat, and then it will go into, I think, a Zoom folder and documents, just in case you want to save all the links. Like I said, please follow all our young people if they put their things in, and just support them whenever you can. Thank you so much, everyone, and take care. Have a lovely evening. Good night.
Thank you, everyone. That was really inspiring. That was great.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chantelle. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all for coming. It was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, good night.